Tonight, a classic Kiwi chat with a legend. Clinical psychologist Nigel Latta speaks frankly about staring death in the face. And his latest creation, Parentland, the app which promises to help struggling parents understand their increasingly complex kids in this digital environment, this digital revolution. And Chris Hipkins blasts the government's tariff strategy, saying it's got no idea what it's doing. But that's a bit rich from Hipkins, isn't it? I'll read him his roll call of shame. So let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Welcome to the program. You're with the Editor-in-Chief. Nice to see you, everybody. I'm Duncan Garner, and please subscribe if you can. Just hit the button there, and thank you so much. It helps us stay around, that's for sure. Right, Nigel Latta, our leading clinical psychologist, legend, iconic, all those labels, and now add to that remarkable fighter, beating incurable cancer, and being here for many, many years to come. We'll have a chat to him shortly, proving you can't keep this guy down. He's releasing this Parentland app. It's an app that promises to help us clueless parents navigate and support and understand our kids' lives. So stand by for that. It's a stonker. And what the actual? Chris Hipkins says the government's got no idea about a response to Trump's tariffs. No shit, Sherlock, because Trump's got no idea about Trump's tariffs. Tonight, I'll give Hipkins an entire slam dunk, reminding him what he on the left is dealing with when it comes to not having a clue. Hipkins is leading a deranged and deluded ship of non-binary activists and separatists, and then there's Willie Jackson and his lazy call that Labor should have taken GST off meat. Willie, I know how busy you are, but Labor's policy last election was GST off fruit and veggies, not meat. Keep up, brother. Kia ora. Let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
It certainly is. The left. Who needs enemies? When you have friends like the Greens and their non-binary assets, you've got Te Pāti Māori and their completely bonkers separatist nonsense and their misguided defiance. And now to that poor old Willie Jackson, Labor MP, who's out there reminding people how little Labor did for them. He's now rewriting the election from 18 months ago, telling people that Labor should have taken GST off meat. Because you've got to do your bit at the supermarket and the pump, says Willie. First you've got to do more than that, Willie. But anyway, God, you can drive a bus through that statement. Firstly, Willie points out that Labor deserted working people by doing sweet FA for them, so that's confirmed. Then he goes further than anyone else went in Labor by introducing a new policy and saying the new policy should have happened at the last election. It's almost impossible to achieve, isn't it? And hard to comprehend. It's all very well now, Willie, but where were you when Auckland was in lockdown? People were struggling. Thing is, while Labor never looked at GST off meat, it was GST off fruit and veggies they looked at last election. And the Kiwis resoundingly said, no. It was too last-minute, cynical sort of push to attract voters. No one was fooled by the shallowness of the offering and how disingenuous it all was. I mean, that's how removed Labor got from real voters. You offered them a 15% discount off fruit and veggies, and we said, stick it. We don't believe you. Take a hike, pal. That's what we did. But it's worse than this for Hipkins, who I haven't really touched up yet on this podcast, so today seems a perfect time for it. Here's the truth, Mr. Hipkins, and you're going to hate it. As long as you're leading Labor, you won't get back into office. Auckland hasn't made peace with you. No way. In other words, it won't vote for you. It doesn't want you. It doesn't trust you or Labor, and it doesn't believe in you. It looks at you and says, there, that guy. As long as you're there, you're a reminder of the biggest city in the bad old COVID days. We felt punished and then abandoned by you and your government. The scars run deep. You know, and a day here and a day there in Auckland doesn't cut it, mate. And quite frankly, as a centre-left package, the three of you look like a ticking time bomb, and the other two have already imploded. Rather than exploded, they've imploded. The left's never looked as unelectable as they do now. That's your lot, Mr. Hipkins. And for Labor to truly change its spots and ways, it will need a fundamental and seismic shift in its leadership and the policies and who they call their friends. Now, until that happens, New Zealanders won't trust you again. I'm just telling it straight and how it is. As long as Hipkins spearheads the centre-left, it says to voters nothing's changed. For parties to get back into government, they need to have gone through a sort of a rinsing and cleansing process. All parties losing office need to do this sort of thing. You see it over the years. But you, Mr. Hipkins, haven't done it yet. You're the same rabble that was booted out. Nothing's changed. There's been no come to Jesus moment. The most you've said is that you tried too much all at once. That's legendary. It's a bit like saying, what are my weaknesses? I just try and do everything all at once. Labor needs a massive overhaul. You need to somehow again appear attractive to the common worker. When was the last time Labor honestly appealed to ordinary workers? The left's become a bunch of silos dedicated to minority causes that middle New Zealand barely recognises. I run into workers all the time, gruff, hard-working men in factories who look at Labor and shake their head and think you're politically correct nonsense, looking for an audience to relate to. That's what people think. Labor needs an overhaul before a whole pile of disillusioned voters will even look at you again, if they even will. They want to see the necessary changes at the very top. We're not fools. You've barely been out of office 5 minutes, and you think that you deserve to be back there now? That's delusional. You know, for as average as Luxon is, you've done nothing to show us that you deserve to be back. You claim this government's muddled in its response to the Trump tariff regime, but check out what's on your plate. The Greens are a right mess, and they're your first choice. They're your first choice friends. Now, God defend New Zealand if that's the case. Next cab's to Party Māori, who have gone so separatist they don't even abide by Parliament's rules anymore. How on earth can you work with such a far-flung disruption group? There's nothing constructive, very little that attracts middle New Zealand to those parties. So it's left to you, and you've been rejected once by the electorate, and you've made no changes expecting to get a different result with the same team. It's not how it works, Chris. Let's look at your record. Putting to one side the parties that you'd rely on. We've spoken about those. It's a three-headed hyena at best. Back to your record. Auckland wants you gone. They won't vote Labour. Look what they did last election. Boy, they walked away from you. So that COVID hangover remains. We feel burnt, ignored, not listened to, and while I'm at it, you left us to our own devices and then opened the gates and flooded the city with far too many people from all over the world without building bigger schools and roads and infrastructure that we so desperately needed. You spent millions and millions on reports and consultants and restructures and little on what we really needed. You were captured by your Māori caucus and you failed to take New Zealanders with you. You said we were front of the queue for the vaccine when we were close on last. You misled us to look good. And now that's on you. So it's not looking too good for you right now, is it? Meanwhile, what does Labour stand for? Well, would you cancel the fast-track stuff? Would you spend like a drunken sailor again? Would you or would you not bring in a capital gains tax? You've had more positions on that than the Kama Sutra. And are you a do-nothing centrist? Or an old-school Labour tax and spend socialist? Who's the real Chris Hipkins? What do you stand for? Do you stand for much or do you stand for nothing at all but office itself? All I know is you represent another time in politics, largely forgettable. And for Labour to have a chance, surely you've got to sacrifice yourself and somehow make people look away from the left-wing train wreck over there. Right now, the polls are only good for Hipkins because the country sees Luxon as a corporate suckhole and largely empathy-free and is out of touch with the pains and trials and tribulations of the West Auckland solo dad driving a truck for a living with access to his kids 3 days a fortnight. Luxon wouldn't know what to say to the guy over an organic pineapple juice. And there's your first problem. It's an organic pineapple juice. But the thing is, that guy has still not got over Labour's time in office. The single dad. The mere sight of Hipkins yapping on is like a reminder that your first mother-in-law is coming to stay again. And this time it's for 6 weeks. Now, people can tick Labour now in a meaningless poll, knowing it doesn't really matter. So they can tick Hipkins and say, give Luxon a bit of a shot up the arse and say, here we go, mate. Here's a frightener for you. Here's a wake-up call. But come the only poll that matters, and Labour will find trust is still a major issue. Hipkins can prance around, claiming this government is all at sea on Trump's tariffs, but Winston, by all accounts, nailed it in Washington. And seriously, who would you want in Washington? Winston Peters or Nanaia Mahuta as our foreign minister? Who do you think the Yanks consider the best person for the job is when they go and meet them? Seriously, Nanaia Mahuta or Winston Peters? Hipkins and his train wreck trio are seriously derailed and go nowhere fast. They look a million miles away from government to me, and at least two of the three parties are so focused on themselves and their grievances and their identity and sexuality, they have largely been detained by a full-length mirror. And I can't recall the last time those parties did something to help out the average Kiwi and talk about somebody else but themselves. They're a bunch of self-styled egos looking for the next cause in which they can grandstand in front of. They have so lost their way, they appear to have forgotten who put them there and why they were put there. I think it's a disgrace.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Right. Said my piece, didn't I? Nigel Latta, survivor. And forever he'll be the man that beat the incurable cancer. It's a great story. He's back, baby. And in a big way as well, launching a new app, Parentland, to help us navigate our kids. No matter what age and what the challenge is, there's something in there for all of us. But surely his fight to beat cancer has given him a new perspective on, well, just about everything, I reckon. Must have. He's with me now. Nigel, g'day, nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan. Good to be here.
Yeah, well, tell me about the news. I mean, I listened to your first video when it was all so bleak and grim, and I felt really sad. And now it is good news. You probably haven't stopped smiling for weeks.
Yeah, well, it's like, so the cancer's not completely gone, but we've really pushed it back, and the regime of drugs that I'm on, the chemo stuff that I'm on, is controlling all of that, and so it's kind of gone from doom and gloom to what it is for a lot of people, just kind of trying to manage the disease. And so, yeah, it's pretty good. So like I'm back kind of working again and back out in the world again and doing stuff again and making plans and everything else. And it's weird given, at least twice I've been told that I'd be dead by now. And it's kind of nice getting those because you kind of get those on the day that you get them. It's like, yeah, not dead. That didn't come to pass.
Talk me through the moment that you were told by the oncologist or doctors that Nigel, we're on top of this. We can't cure it, but we can manage this thing now. You're going to be around for years and years. Tell us, if you can, what you remember of the day.
Yeah, oncologists are a lot more careful than that, and so really, it's a kind of a business as usual stuff when you go and talk to those guys. But what's really hopeful is just the fact that the scans are looking good, the stuff is in retreat. I'm feeling good. I don't kind of really have any symptoms of anything. Um, and so apart from, once every 2 weeks I have to kind of do the chemo thing, and that's takes you out for 3 or 4 days. It's all going really well. So doctors are very cautious. They'll never say everything is great or everything is kind of terrible. Um, but certainly, what it's been tracking in a really positive direction. So that's pretty cool. And just being able to kind of make plans again and think about going places and doing stuff. Because in the middle of it, you're just in this sort of endless cycle of chemo, feeling terrible. You have a couple of weeks of feeling not so terrible, and then you start again. Like it's pretty grinding. It's pretty grinding.
Yeah, it can be grim, I suppose. When I've been next to my dad during his 9 months, that he was told he had to live, and he lived the 9 months, and that was it. And so I've seen it, and I feel really pleased for you. I feel really upbeat about it because I feel like the country knows you. The country knows you, and I feel like we all know you really well. And it's just good news. We've had so much bad news. It's bloody good news. I smiled when I heard.
It's been really lovely, and it's like I kind of wish everyone with cancer could get all these lovely messages because people are just really lovely and seeing through these really nice kind of messages, and and there's like the strange thing happened here. I was at the supermarket, and this woman came up to me and she said that she heard that things were better, and she said, could I pray for you? And not like I'm an atheist, it's not my thing, but I said sure, thinking that she'd go to church and pray. But we did it there in the supermarket. So she said this little prayer in the fruit and vegetable section, and it was just. I mean, I'm not religious, but it was just this lovely thing that this person did, and so I feel very very humbled by kind of just the avalanche of just supportive messages I've got from people.
We do live in such a small country by population size, and you're never far removed from someone. Either they're a family member or a friend, or they know someone. It's just one of those countries. And I reckon you're right. You would have had. I can just imagine you've been inundated, and everyone just feels like they know you, and they're happy for the turnaround. I think that's one of the most wonderful things about this country is our familiarity.
Yeah, it is, and it's like you can be at the supermarket and see the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like. I like the same thing. Like we're a little country, and we kind of sometimes I think forget that, and we become disconnected from each other when it's a tiny place, and it's easier for us to connect up here because everyone knows everyone who knows everyone.
Yeah, I haven't seen Luxon at Pack and Save so far, but you never know.
No, no. I saw it many years ago. I saw Jacinda at the supermarket, but I've never seen. I haven't seen Luxon at the supermarket yet.
Yeah, Howard Clark used to go on Sunday afternoons, I think, and he used to drive herself.
Yeah, I could imagine that.
It's classic Clark. So you're back on the road. I can't believe you've turned around this app in such a short time too, Parentland, which I tell you, I wish that was here 20 years ago. It's just we'll talk about it because it looks so useful.
And it hasn't been a short time, so I've been thinking about the idea for 20 years. The technology back then just kind of wasn't there because I had this idea that you should be able to deliver advice to parents that's personalized. Like it's not just generic advice, because if you've got two kids, they're both different. And so probably, for about 10 years, the idea just sort of would float around my head for a bit. And then about 10 years ago, the tech stuff and phones and apps sort of caught up. And so probably for the last 6 years, I've been working on it with a team of people. For quite. I've put thousands of hours into this app.
I can see that, yeah.
And it's been this huge odyssey, and I've driven people mad because for the last 6 years, people don't say, when's the app out? I go, 3 months. And every time I say 3 months, I utterly believe it. It's just not true. So it was really nice to just to get it out there is nice. It feels like the the end of this it's really it's the beginning of the next phase, but it's the end of that long plodding journey to get. I once spent, and I don't know how to code, but I once spent 3 weeks trying to get one box to uncheck as you check the other box.
Oh no.
So it's like,
Oh
it was
no.
like, so I was lucky, and then we've got Cactus Labs in Auckland, who are an app development company, and they're fantastic. They've kind of come on board as shareholders, and they took this broken thing that I made and just rebuilt the code base from the ground up and kind of fixed everything and made it lovely and made the information flow. So it's been cool. It's like finally, for a long time it was just me, and then it was kind of me and Natalie, and now it's us and Cactus Lab and the rest of the people team, which is cool.
Because there's so much information available on the net, you just,
Yeah.
God, you can just, there's a black hole. A lot of it's not useful and probably telling you the wrong thing. So this is a credible voice, and there's so many apps and so much noise that comes at us as parents. God, what do we
Yeah.
do? This is driving me crazy. But this looks to me like it's a bit of a one-stop shop for those parents who are struggling with the kid who doesn't want to eat that or has maybe lead to eating disorders, so you can knock it on the head quickly and you can get some good advice, or the kid who has issues with too much social media time, whatever. It gives you ways through this, right?
Yeah, and we tried really hard to make it kind of evidence-based because there's a lot of crap out there. Do you know what I mean? Like wellness experts who make all these pontifications about what you should and shouldn't do, and sort of parenting experts who tell you if you don't raise your children my way, they'll be damaged somehow. And so what we've tried to do is make it kind of, because I think if you're telling people how to raise their children, then that should be based on something. Like it shouldn't just be, I think, it should be based on something solid. And it's particularly true of things like eating. Eating's the one thing that you have to get right, because if you get that wrong, it can be pretty catastrophic. And so we've kind of got some tools in there for a food range diary so that you can track the amount of foods in each of the major food groups that your kid are eating. And there's a little tool in there so you can kind of work through it, see if your kid actually does have an eating disorder. And if they do, then you're going to kind of get them off to professional help pretty quickly.
Yeah, and so all that advice is there, and even things like, because Nigel, with social media, and I've got my youngest is 14. In fact, I said, come to work with me just now, and he was lying on his bed, although he has been at rugby training this morning, but he's on the old YouTube and just flicking through the shorts like this. And I said, don't do too much on that. I'll be back shortly. I was going to go and see Nigel Latta. I'm going to ask him about you, and because these kids are just so focused on these phones. And every few weeks it goes next level. I've written about this over the years in papers and magazines and things, because I reckon it's changing society and changing and rewiring our kids. Now I don't know whether it's a good or bad thing. You'll know because you know all about kids, but is it good or bad? It is life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so screens are kind of here to stay. If you look at the evidence around the impact of screens on young people, the most significant one is around sleep, like having devices late at night and not sleeping. And because if you don't get enough sleep, that leads to all kinds of problems. For the rest of it, there's no definitive and clear evidence that it causes harm. And so really, it's just about trying to come up with a kind of a regime of screen use that works in your house. But, after that, the series Adolescence on Netflix, which kind of took over the world. And I have to say, I didn't know too much about Andrew Tate and the manosphere. Like I'd heard about incels, and I'd heard a little bit about that world, but what I was kind of completely oblivious to was just how this guy and people like him are kind of just co-opting young people, particularly young men, into this toxic, awful world. And so I think that's why that series has really kind of sparked a thing in the world, because I didn't know anywhere near enough about that stuff, and so I've since kind of looked into it, and they're very good. Like they've got a very good strategy to find disaffected young men, and reel them in. And it's like most teenagers are disaffected young men. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Oh, I
they're
know, I know.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
disengaged and affected and looking for some leadership from someone, eh?
yeah. And so the whole thing about women are awful. Um, if you're a young guy and you're not getting dates and you're not having sex, it's much easier to blame women and go, look, there's 80% of 20% of women are having sex with all the men. The numbers are weird, and 80% don't. And so these women are making all these decisions, and all of this sort of
Mm.
awful toxic stuff goes on. So that's probably, that's and to kind of deal with that, you kind of have to start when they're little. Like you have to be talking about this stuff to them when they're 7 or 8, so that when they finally encounter it, they go, "Oh, that's an idiot."
Yeah, having a few sisters always helps too. Bigger sisters that can
Yeah, yeah.
can put them on the right
Well,
track. But these boys are so
so you
easily
think,
led, Nigel. They're so easily led.
yeah, the screen stuff is like everything else. It's all about conversations, and it's all about relationships, and it's just kind of sounding them out, trying to give them some skills so they can recognize the shitty stuff and know how to deal with it.
Because look, my guy mirrors what was happening in your house too when he was so intermediate, 11 maybe 11. This Andrew
Yep.
Tate name came up, and so I went and had a look at it, and I thought, nah, this guy's not going to get in your mind. But he already had, and so these guys were a little bit. They weren't woman haters, but they were just a bit toxic, just on
Yeah.
the very early stages of it. So I knocked that on the head and said, no, 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 no. And I came up with this theory. I sit in the car, pick him up, and I say, right, I'm going to talk for 10 minutes. Once a week, I'm not going to talk. You talk to me about anything. I don't jump in. I don't comment. I don't react. I don't tell you off. I don't do anything. I just listen for 10 minutes. The
Right.
first day, he laughed at me.
Yeah.
Second day, he was a bit uncomfortable. He said, you're a dick. Third day,
Yeah.
he started to talk about 2 minutes of the 10 minutes. And then a few more days later, he talked about 5 minutes and just kept talking to me about stuff. So it kind of worked, but we
No,
don't
that's
do it
really
now.
lovely. That's
Yeah.
that's what you do. That's really lovely. It's cool.
Yeah, but there's so much material that we don't know what they're seeing, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like it's like you used to worry just about porn, but no, it's about this whole ideologies out there that are about kind of making young guys into misogynistic assholes,
It's true.
joining the club with all the rest of them. I mean, it always strikes me as beyond right. They complain about the fact, like they complain about the fact they can't get dates with women, but it's like, have you ever thought about the fact that all you do is spout this misogynistic,
Yeah.
woman-hating, toxic crap? Like, do you think that may have something to do with the fact that women don't want to go anywhere near you?
Oh, I think it's just like a big banner that says "Don't date me," and some of these young
Yeah,
kids, like they're openly supporting Trump, so they're the new conservative young men, and they
yeah,
don't know really what they're supporting. I see the way they talk to their mothers, and I go around to some of these boys' houses, and I think, God, you can't use that language in front of your mother,
yeah,
just
yeah,
things like that. And I found myself telling these boys off, who aren't even my boys, although I spend a lot of time with these kids, so I sort of feel like, oh no, come on, mate, this is right from wrong. But there's a real element of this, Nigel. It's everywhere.
yeah. And it's this new thing that people hadn't thought about until, or a lot of people hadn't thought about until adolescence came along. And um, it was such good telling, like such a good drama that it really it did a very good job at the parents who were just good parents, normal parents, and then this terrible thing happens. So yeah, I think it's this whole other layer of the internet now that we have to think about more that we didn't think about before. Certainly I didn't.
Is the sky? This is something you would have addressed in some of your talks over the years. But is the sky falling in? Is this the end of these? Is this the end of the Earth for this generation? Is this generation not smarter than the one before? So it's the first time they're
Yeah,
not smarter. Are they dumber? Do they not have any of the street smarts that we all had? Have they tapped out of life? Are they useless? I mean, this is what you constantly hear. The sky's
yeah.
not falling in, is it, Nigel?
There's this famous quote from, I think, Aristotle or someone like that, going on about the youth of today, blah, 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 they're lazy and insolent and all the rest of it. No, and in fact, the statistics are pretty good. Like they're drinking alcohol later. Um, there's kind of there's less crime and more engaged and stuff. And so the statistics paint a really good picture that actually, no, things are getting better.
Mm.
And they're different. And it's like, some of them are a bit and it's kind of our fault because we encourage them to talk about their feelings, and suddenly they think everyone wants to listen to their feelings. And so they can be a little bit precious about stuff, and they can expect things. Yeah, I once did a talk for the I think High Court judges because the new clerks they were getting in weren't doing what clerks used to do, which is you'd work all day, every day, and do whatever was required of you to and stay late. And now these guys are going, no, I want to go home at 5 o'clock. Like I've got
Yeah.
stuff to do. And it's like we get angry at them and we say, oh, how terrible. But it's like we just didn't think of doing that. Like we're the monkeys. We're the ones who stayed late and worked hard and did all this kind of stuff.
We thought we
Um,
had to.
yeah, and they're just going, no, no, I'm not going to do that. So there's lots of good things about kind of kids and young people kind of coming through, and yeah, there are some of them are a bit precious and they get offended about stuff, and
Yeah.
it all gets a bit silly. But generally they're kind of they're pretty good. They drive. I think they drive employees mad, but
Hmm.
um, there are lots of if you can kind of harness the good stuff about them, there's a lot of good there.
I think they're quite smart. I think they're smarter than us with all the technology and everything. They're probably a bit thinner skinned, and they don't drink
Yeah,
like us. I mean, I was brought up. Oh my God, we were having keg parties, second 15, first 15 days out. We had drinking games with our parents, all those sorts of things. If you didn't
yeah,
drink, you're a pussy. And so I don't drink in front of my son. He doesn't see any of that. I don't drink much anyway. So he doesn't drink. He's almost 15 now. We'd already got lagered up the up. You know what it
yeah,
was like.
yeah.
We
I
didn't
know.
have social media, so we had to fill our days with what you went to school, and
Yeah,
then you had your game rugby, then you got a keg. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're not doing that. Like they're not drinking like
it's
we
good.
used to drink. They're being much more careful about it. And they have kind of access to um a lot more kind of drugs and a lot of kids do than the stuff that we kind of had access to. But even with the drugs, most of them are pretty sensible about that. Like they're
Mm,
sensible in how and when they take them. Um, and to be honest, the drugs cause less harm than the alcohol. So in
yeah.
terms of effects, alcohol's pretty bad.
Well, I
So
look at some of
um,
the guys that I went to school with, and they're still boozing, and there's a couple of guys that lost down rabbit holes on the old weed.
yeah,
Just smoke too
yeah,
much. They smoke too much.
yeah,
And I look at these guys now, and I think you're doing 40 hours a week on your phone. That's probably too much, but oh well, you're still playing basketball and rugby and doing these things. So, you know,
yeah. And they're still kind of connecting up, and most of them are using their phones to kind of connect with friends and send messages and do all that kind of stuff.
God, yes.
Um, and when they're younger, they go through that phase of watching all that annoying YouTube stuff of, oranges that yell at each other and just weird, bizarre crap. Um,
It's
but
pointless shit,
they
isn't
uh,
it?
they seem to be navigating their way around that. And there's no again like the evidence for the harm caused by kind of devices and screens. It's just kind of not there. So these catastrophic claims of how terrible it is.
Hmm.
There's no real support for that apart from, as I said, the sleep thing. And sleeping is a big deal. And so it's the using of phones at night time that's the big deal.
And you hear that from educators. The next day these kids are turning up to school, and some of them fall asleep in class, and some of
Yeah.
them are just not engaged because they've been up till midnight, 1 o'clock, and so they can't keep doing that. So you got to manage that. That's probably and that's our fault. We're the parents, right? We've got to manage it.
Yeah, and one of the things that about mental health problems like depression is that lack of sleep is a big driver of that. So if
Yeah.
if you could clear up the sleep problems for a lot of people who are kind of clinically depressed, then you would find that they do a lot better. So there are really good reasons to try as hard as you can to encourage them to have a bit of discipline with screens. But how many of us at night time start doom scrolling through Instagram or whatever? Do you know what I mean? And it's the kind
These
of
kids are looking at their parents doing it. The parents are in the lounge. There's nothing on TV anymore.
yeah,
And
we're all doing it.
so they're having your dinner in front of your screen, and the whole family's they're not sitting at the table anymore. That's a bit of a bugger, and they're all on the screens. Well,
Yeah,
mum and dad are doing it too.
yeah.
Does Parentland, does it have advice and techniques for the social media overdose and everything?
No, so what we've done for the first kind of launch is just really deal with the basics of eating, sleeping, and behavior, and we
Yeah.
have pages and pages of stuff to do next. The stuff that we want to do next. So, hopefully, if people like it, then that's going to mean that we're going to have some kind of resources, and we can start developing new tools and put that stuff out there and put some. I mean, screen in terms of content, screens will be the kind of the next big thing that we're going to
Mm.
throw some stuff in there about. But there's tons of stuff. We've got plans for many, many things.
Well, that's the great thing about an app, isn't it? You can build it, you can have it as deep as you want to go, and so that means that for parents, this thing will go as deep as they want it to over time with different topics in them.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of cool that one of the things that I really like about it is that you really are getting advice that's specific to your kid's temperament and age. So, you've got a persistent 6-year-old and you've got an easygoing 11-year-old. You're going to deal with sleep problems quite differently for both of those kids. And so
Mm.
we can kind of you get different advice for your 6-year-old and your 11-year-old just based on your temperament. And again, like the great thing about the temperament is there's an evidence base going back 70 years to say this is a thing,
Mm.
and it exists and it's real, and it's in people.
So it's not just generic advice; this is targeted to certain behaviours and certain ages and things. That's great. I reckon
Yeah, so all the game plans around kind of sleep and eating and behavior,
yeah,
they're kind of targeted so that those key things around, I mean, because some kids get really wound up by new stuff,
yeah.
and some kids are just really kind of stubborn.
Mm. Do we give kids too many labels? I mean, I remember the days you used to say, just let your kids get outside, run, let them get dirty, or that, some of your early talks that were televised in New Zealand, and I was much younger then and the kids were younger, and I was one of those parents that just said, well, if you're going to break your arm, you're going to break your arm, but you've got to learn to climb this, You'll do everything to make sure they don't fall off, but if they fall off, shit happens. And so I was one of those parents, and I reckon it works.
Yeah, I think there are too many kids being given labels by people that shouldn't be giving kids labels. So some of it is parents diagnosing stuff off the internet, and some of it is you go to some counselor or some wellness expert or whoever, and they're diagnosing, kids on the spectrum and kids with ADHD and everything else. And that stuff really is the realm of psychiatrists and clinical psychologists. And um, it's kind of one of the worries that I have is that we're watering down the system. So part of what the government's doing is they've kind of created a whole bunch of new roles for people who can now call themselves psychologists and make diagnoses, and that's fine, as long as those people are going to be supervised. But what we know is they're not. There are plenty of people out there who are just kind of throwing these labels around.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's really dangerous, and they shouldn't be, because, like, imagine if you're a kid and you get told you're on the autistic
Yeah.
spectrum. It's like, oh,
Well,
like
your
that's
education,
not
your
something.
education might change as a result, and then you withdraw, and all sorts of things can happen.
Yeah, like it's just not something that people should be doing unless they're qualified to do it.
What about overparenting? Do you hold a view of? I mean, you've talked about this before, but I see a lot of kids. It does my head in when I see overparenting, especially of boys, and I just think, boys and girls are very different, because I've got two of each, and they're very different beasts. The older they
Yeah.
get, the even more different they are. So you've got to have techniques for these guys. But boys have to feel the rough, and well, not all of them, but mostly they sort of have to get it out of the system.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And so I've always encouraged that. But I see a lot of mothers in particular say, no, 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 no.
I think there is a bit of overparenting that goes on, and it's parents who think that to be a good parent, your kids have to be getting top on everything and achieving everything and blah 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 blah. So there's lots of pressure on the academic stuff, and there's lots of pressure to do 57 different activities every week, and then they wonder why their kids are kind of tired and irritable, and it's because they never get time to goof off. And
Yeah, yeah.
if you've got kind of, all of these tutors and people are helping you, then you kind of never get to, it's harder to experience failing, and you learn far more from failing than you do from succeeding. Succeeding is great. It's like, yay, that was good. But failure's where you really learn the big lessons. So it's funny, like, I'm not into sport, but I've just watched a documentary about the All Blacks on I think Netflix, which was really great. And
Yeah.
they were kind of talking about, when they lost against the French in the semi-finals, and how devastating that was. And then
I've seen it.
how
Yeah, yeah.
and how they kind of, and Richie McCaw in particular was talking about how he like that's when he kind of took himself to task and went away and learned from this stuff. Like, kids have to fail,
Yeah.
and that's like including things like falling out of trees. Like, no one wants you kids to fall out of a tree, but that's how you learn your limits. And what we know is kids are actually really good at determining their own limits. So you get 3 different kids climbing a tree, they're all going to get to different heights and take different paths. And some of them will get a little bit away and they'll stop because they're not confident.
You're so
And
right.
some will go all the way to the top of the tree because they're confident and they can do their thing. Um, and so, yeah, I agree. It is about letting kids go out and do all of that stuff and not micromanaging it and letting them fail. That's important. You've got
I
to learn how
felt
to fail.
I fell off a house under construction when I was 7 and hit my head. That might be what's wrong with me. And then it did a green stint of fork fractures in my because I can't turn my arm around. Now I've always been scared of heights since. I don't think I've ever gone that high on anything. Even going up the Sky Tower, I cling to the walls because it
Yeah.
affected me so much so that I'm scared of heights. I find it dangerous, and so I can't overcome it.
Well, some people say being scared of heights is not an irrational fear. Do you know what I mean? It's like
It's
it's the
fair,
one
fair
thing,
enough.
like we've done a lot of stuff in telly, but heights are always the thing that kind of get me. So we did this thing once. We went up to the lightning rod on the very top of the Sky Tower. So you go to the observation deck, you climb up ladders inside, and you climb up this ladder outside for like 4 stories. And I just remember, like, you clipped on and everything, but I was
So
shooting
what?
myself. And
So what?
yeah, the only way that I could do it is I went, right, let's just do 4 steps at a time. One, two, three, four.
Oh,
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that I think that the fear of heights thing, one thing is kind of rational. Um, and there are some things that you can do with kind of fears like that. I mean, one of them is you, you go to you push yourself to do these really things that you find incredibly hard. Like I've always been scared of spiders my
oh,
entire life, and then we filmed a thing with the tarantula where I had to hold it. Um, and like for the first 5 minutes as I was holding this tarantula, it felt like the most awful freaking thing I'd ever done in my life. But I
oh.
remember this weird thing happened at about 6 minutes. It's like my brain just started to unplug from all the fears around the spider, and I just stopped being afraid of it. And then I was like, well, can we put it on my face and can we have it climbing up my arm and all this kind of stuff? So it was I'm just going to close that door because
Yeah, that's
people
cool.
have arrived home unexpectedly, which is always the thing that happens. So yeah, like part of what I think is good about when kids are allowed to do more stuff is they find the edges, like they find where they've got phobias or things that might be stopping them.
Yeah.
Then you can help them with that stuff.
Well, I think it's good because that means the kids are thinking about the consequences. So they've had the back of their leg burnt from the motorbike or whatever, so they're reluctant to go on it. That means they learn to listen. So that creates
Yeah,
the boundaries. Yeah, I like all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Hey, yeah. Well, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. I reckon the next generation is going to be fine. In fact, I think they might be brilliant. There's always AI. We're in the middle of a disruption period, right? Big time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And like it's easy to become despondent about the world because you look at what's happening and you think, this is terrible. And it is
Mm,
terrible, but it'll pass. You know what I mean? It's like the stain that Trump leaves,
mm.
that'll continue. I think he's done a great deal of harm things, but the tendency is for the human race to get better, not worse. And so we're better now than we were 50 years ago. We're better than we were 100 years ago. And all this nonsense from Trump and people climbing, that'll pass eventually. He'll become a footnote in history, and people will just kind of move on.
And people need, that's really good advice, Nigel. People need to see it for what it is. It is a 4 year cycle. He can only do so much damage in 4 years. You can do a lot of it. But at the end of the day, he's going to die. He's an old man now. He's not that far away from it, probably, in this whole scheme of things. He's going
Yeah,
to do this time in office. He'll disappear, as you say. The world will return to some form of the next whatever normal is.
yeah.
He's not going to wipe generations from the earth. We've
No,
got
and
we don't have Hitler as available anymore in the world. We don't. I think we have systems that mean it can't happen.
yeah, and it's like he is having a real impact. Like I don't think I would travel to the States because I've got Iran on my passport. And so I think I'm not going to go there when all this craziness is going on. But it doesn't mean I'll never go there. I'll just wait for all of this to pass,
Yeah.
and then I'll go. And so yeah, I think it is true. Like eventually he'll die, and he'll pass away, and all of that stuff will kind of fade. I mean, I think he has really done some damage in terms of making it okay to be like that. But again, the history of kind of humanity is that we get better, we get kinder, we get less violent, we look after each other more. That's what the actual data says.
It does show that, does it? It does show we get more empathetic and things.
Yeah, well, we're just like the human race just becomes kind of kinder and nicer. Like kindness really is the default state, and it has to have been because for us to have survived for millions of years, and our
Mm.
ancestors to survive millions of years, we had to look after each other. Like that's the only way it 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 worked. And so kindness really is the default state, and which means that he won't win. You know, my thing is like love always wins, and it will in this case too. Like even the people that support him, they're just doing it because they think it'll make the world better. And some of it is, a lot of it is just
It's delusional.
based on nothing at all. But the data shows that we get better, we don't get worse. So I'm not concerned for the future of us. I'm concerned for the next few years, particularly for people who live in the States, how terrible it'd be. But
Mm.
the world will get over this.
He worries me because I was hoping he might be better than the second time. He learned the first time that he had a
Yeah,
good look at it, and he's come back and maybe he might have
yeah,
mellowed with age because that's what all the research shows. And I thought maybe he was okay for a bit there, but then we've got this fucking moron in charge of the world economy again, and I'm thinking
yeah.
all the evidence and everything suggests you've taken us back to 1910 all over again. Are you fucking stupid?
I know.
There's
It is
nothing
like
good about it.
it is. I know it's like having an angry toddler in charge of the world's. And I don't even think he understands tariffs. Like I genuinely don't know if he understands tariffs and how they work.
So is he listening to advisors? Does he have anyone around him that says, "Hey, Mr. President, this is what's going to happen"?
He has. He surrounds himself with people go, that's brilliant. Like this is amazing.
Sycophants.
It's the best
Yeah.
deal ever.
Shit. That's a worry.
Yeah.
There's a worry, mate.
Only if you think about it.
Yeah, but the thing is, as you say, we get better. We get better. Now you go back to Hitler, which is way less than 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Shit, that was less than 100 years ago, and that we were doing that to people.
Yeah. And definitely, I mean, the Hitler analogy gets overused a lot, but I mean, he's basically removing books. He's targeting people. He wants to have journalists arrested that say mean things about him. Like it's like there are some parallels there. But like you say, the good thing is at least there are checks and balances in place so that he can't just do whatever the hell he likes. He still has the um, you know, places like the Supreme Court that hopefully will do their job
Mm.
and stop him.
No, it's Putin and the North Koreans that can do what they like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
those guys
And
are crazy.
that's why he admires them so much.
Hey, yeah, exactly. Real dictators. Hey, great catching up, Nigel. I'll just go back to what I finish off with what I started with
Yeah,
around your health and everything. Did you think this was it? Did you think, oh shit?
yeah, yeah. There were moments there where, especially when you're given the bad news, you think, geez, like I might have weeks or months and then I'm gone. But that passes because I'm sort of by nature kind of super optimistic. And so what happens is I get this really bad news, and then if it's really bad news, then I can listen to the bad news, and I kind of it's like I get unpicked from the inside and fall apart for a bit.
Yeah.
Um, and Natalie's different. She falls apart during the bad news and gets together later, and so we that kind of works for us because we can kind of hold each other up. Um, but I straight away I just go back to using kind of tools and strategies because I think, well, okay, well, these are just numbers. No one knows. Those survival rates are based on you know age and a whole bunch of other things that at play. So there are lots of people who don't you know who don't die within the time frames that they're given.
Yeah, exactly.
There's that long golden tail thing, and so
Yeah.
I just automatically go back to those things because I think, okay, what's going to help me? I mean, one of the things I did at the very beginning on the first night is that when we were still struggling with it, I kind of promised Natalie that I wouldn't leave, and that's the promise that keeps me motivated and focused all the time. It's like I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that promise and make sure that I don't um, uh, leave.
When
And
you say
that's
leave, you're gonna stay present. You're here every day. You wake up. You're here.
Yeah, like I'm not going anywhere. Like,
You're
our
gonna.
story's a long story. I'm staying. And so I focus on that, and that's my kind of compass. And then I just start doing the things that I can do. I try and eat properly. Well, I try and eat. And then exercise and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it does matter, that stuff, eh? Oh, well, I'm full of admiration, always full of respect for you, and it's been great catching up. I think I've exhausted all my questions. You're a wonderful New Zealander, and I'm glad you're hanging around.
Thank you, Duncan. That's lovely to say. I mean, I think I'm just a New Zealander, but it's lovely. It's lovely to. It's a very nice, it's a very kind thing to say.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think you're pretty special because you've helped me. You've helped me.
Yeah.
Seriously helped me over the time. You wouldn't have even known that. And there'll be hundreds of people like me that you've helped, thousands of people that you probably know, but you probably won't know it as well.
Yeah, it has been pretty nice just to, because I mean, it's like with the tally stuff, it's a team effort. Like it's a big, all the TV stuff I've ever done. There's been a team of us that put that out, and so the credit for kind of helping people, is I think equally shared amongst all of those people that made those shows what they were. But it is nice. It's nice to know that you can say some things, and that it helps people. Like that's the best. That's kind of the best thing. It's been one of the really lovely things about this. Like some old clients have reached out. Some of the teenagers that I work with who are pretty troubled have kind of reached out, and it's just it's lovely. It's very nice.
Maybe it's not what you say, but it's the way you say it. It's how you make people feel. It's how you make people feel. That's always the crucial bit, I reckon.
Well, I just think it's going to be fine, and people are good, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's my thing. Like people's intentions are always good. They just are. Even if they do really bad things, their intentions underneath that are almost always good. And so people want kind of things to be better. So I kind of believe in that, and I just kind of think that it'll be fine. And
yeah, you're reassuring. Well, I think what it was is it's the way you say it, your tone and your intonation as well. Yeah, it's going to be fine, and I believed it, and it actually was okay in the end. So yeah, so thanks, Nigel.
Fine. If it's not, you deal with it when it's not. But mostly it turns out fine, and when it doesn't, you just go, okay, how do I deal with this?
That's right, and nothing lasts forever, and you move on. Yeah, you reevaluate, and you rebuild, and you go again.
Yeah, you just get your dust off and you get up and you plod on.
She's a marathon. Life's a marathon, if we're lucky. Yeah. Okay, mate. Nice to catch up.
Hey, lovely talking, Duncan. Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers. Thank you for your time, Nigel. Appreciate it, mate. Stay well.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Yeah, remarkable Kiwi. I know he doesn't want to be seen as a remarkable Kiwi. And I think it's just his basic... his message is always so simple. But he sort of says it in an upbeat way. Christchurch producer Isaac, he's a nice guy, eh? And he sort of gives us reassuring messages, eh?
Yeah, I've known of Nigel Latta for a long time. I've watched plenty of his documentaries, both with my family and in Year 13 Health. But yeah, he's a very wise guy. And like I said, that was great. Like he's obviously gone through the thick of it recently, but he's still he's got that positive outlook, like you mentioned, and he's just doing his thing.
Yeah, to me, he's reassuring. It'll be fine. And he's right. It usually is fine. Whenever I've done stories, the sky's falling in. I've never seen the sky falling. So maybe we just need a bit of sometimes we need a bit of a pull ourselves together a bit, eh?
Yeah.
Just be less alarmist at things, I suppose. All right, letters.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Let's have a look. What do we got there? You kick it away.
Sweet. First one here is from Mr. Alistair Johnson. He says, "Hi, Duncan. I'm an avid podcast listener, and I recently stumbled across your work via YouTube. I just watched your podcast on your job loss / depression / marriage situation. I just wanted to say, keep up the good work. This country is in desperate need of independent media such as yourself because of the left-leaning 6 p.m. Channel 1 news is a joke. They're basically puppets to the Marxist agenda. I also have lost my job lately in January, and I am more than a bit broken and without direction, but I refuse to give up. Sincerely, Mr. Alistair Johnson."
That's a nice email. Best advice. Thank you for finding us, stumbling across it. And that podcast I did about the marriage, my God, that might have been a year or so ago. But anyway, you found it.
Yeah, it would have been a long time ago.
Yeah, and thank you for being so exercised that you listened to it and you've written to me. Best advice I can give you if you're looking for a job is find the job ad and completely copy it in the way that you apply for a job. So make sure that you use all the words they use and everything. Just copy it. Just blatantly copy it and put it all together in your words and then flick it to them because that's what they're looking for. and it's all gone through. It all goes through AI as well, which we've learned as well, isn't it? It's scary. Go again. What else have we got there? Thank you, Alistair.
This one here. Hello, Duncan. I've loved your work for a while now. As being a Westlake boy, I have recently been looking for work. However, I have felt some Pakeha racism as I'm doing so. I'm going to have to rely on some very distant ancestors' religion to get me a graduate role after university. However, I feel this has little influence to me. I have provided evidence from a Becker interview, a very large engineering firm. I feel it is very hard as a white male in New Zealand. I hope you can spread this message on your show. However, I prefer if you didn't use my name, as I'm trying to gain a graduate role. Please let me know if this information will be used on air.
It will be used on air. It's been used on air, and I want you to look at this. This is the advertisement that he's referring to. So if you have a look at it here, it basically says that Becker supports and encourages the applications, and it tries to hire people of Pacific Island Māori or Torres Strait lineage. Which I thought that you couldn't say this in ads in New Zealand. I thought that you had to be non-discriminatory in your approach to employment. You can't say I want to hire a brown person, I want to hire a white person. You can't say it.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds. I did briefly look at the photo. I'm just going to pull it up so that I can see it as well. Yeah. But I feel like the language they use could very easily be defended as not being prejudicial. Yeah. And so they're not saying, for this role, to meet quota, we're only hiring these people. They're saying that we provide recruitment opportunities for everybody. So but it does specify them though. Those particular groups. They'll probably need to be careful. But I also think that this joker, and thank you for getting in touch with us, is a little bit down on his luck, and also hasn't received back any job offers or whatever. And so it's easy to point the finger, right? So. Yeah. This, I don't think the world's anti-white, not yet anyway. I don't think it's anti-white. No,
still a fair way to go.
I think,
yeah. Have a look at the white guys in the jobs.
Yeah, you're right. It is very easy to point a finger. You miss out on 3 or 4 job opportunities after you've seen your CV, and you're right. It can be difficult, but
I can see how you can pick up that language. You can pick up on those directives and say, we're really encouraging these people to get a job. They'll only get the job if they're actually right for the job. Anyway, thank you for your feedback. And when we get so many letters, we get so much social media feedback, we can't obviously include it all. We just pick a couple away.
One more thing from me, Duncan, I'd just like to mention. I believe that we have hit a little bit of a milestone before the deadline that you mentioned in an earlier episode. So I just like to congratulate you, because by the 14th of April, we have hit 20,211 subscribers.
Now, I said I'd do 50 sit-ups if we got to 20 by the end of April.
I think you said by the 15th. So I think we've done it a day early. Yeah.
We got there. Okay, so tomorrow then I have to pump out 50.
There you go.
I'm not doing them now. I'm not psychologically prepared. But 50 was hard too. 50 I was gassed. 50 I was gassed. But I reckon I can do it. Okay, I'll do it tomorrow. It's all on for tomorrow.
Mate.
I'll pump them out tomorrow. Okay, that's great. Well done, mate. Too, getting to 20. Look, what was it? 8 weeks ago we were on 5,000.
Yeah, pretty much.
So thank you to everybody for subscribing. Just another reminder, if you can subscribe, please do so across, wherever you are getting this podcast, subscribe, please. It basically means that we do better as a podcast. More subscribers, more followers, and the more financial we can be in the sense that it's stronger. It's a stronger product. When the bosses want to come and axe us, we can stand there and go, no way, mate, we've got 40,000 subscribers now, piss off, so what are you going to do about it? Okay, so that's why, all right? Yeah, that's the main thing.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, that's us. Thank you for your feedback and support. Get in touch for social media, Duncan Garner podcast on TikTok, Instagram, or flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz. I'm still getting so many booper emails. And watch this space, that's not finished yet. It's been well and truly subscribed to that little series as well. So I haven't forgotten you, and I'm going through the emails in my other office in my home. Okay, so we'll bring you some more of that this week. To my team, Isaac, thank you, sir. Thank you for reminding me I have press-ups tomorrow. And we'll do those tomorrow. And remember, life is no dress rehearsal, no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth. As Nigel Latta says, it'll be fine. Get out and have a great rest of the day. Take care, folks. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.